From the moment we are born, the clock starts ticking, and yet no one can prove what happens when it finally stops. Unlike most animals, humans live with an acute awareness that time is finite. We're used to thinking that there is a beginning, middle, and end to everything. Our minds are wired to arrange life in a sequence, and really, it's close to impossible for the majority to imagine what infinity would look and feel like. The uniqueness of human consciousness, constantly diverting us from the present moment, is perpetually aware of the impending final hour. And funny enough, even though the irreversibility of death is a widely accepted concept, we had never stopped our attempts to control time. The linear view wasn't enough. We had to break time into smaller chunks of years, months, days, minutes, seconds, milliseconds. All this categorizing to become even more terrified by the unknown. Does the ephemeral nature of things push us to bond together? Hypothetically speaking, if we were to gain the certainty of our immortality, the immortality of the spirit, so to speak, how would things be different? Would time still matter? And what about rushing ahead of others to succeed, prioritizing work over human relationships, competing with your peers who has the most expensive car? Would there be such a thing as fear, anxiety, or jealousy if one was promised an inexhaustible resource of time at their disposal? We turn to science to decipher the uncertainties, but even with the rapid pace of the progress we are making, we hardly know anything. The notion of truth is very subjective. No matter how much evidence we have gathered, there may always be a contradiction ahead along the way. Some things exist to never be vindicated, among them the concept of an afterlife. If we knew for a fact, the world would be a much different place. Sometimes acknowledging our limits is the only honest way forward. Welcome back. Hello. Some people may view this episode as a proof of my ultimate insanity, while others may enjoy it. This was your total warning. Now, do I care? No. Let's get on with that. Recently, I had been recommended to read a book by a friend of mine, which is called Only Love is Real by Brian Weiss. And I know that this sounds romantic, but that's not the only theme that this book tackles. The main theme that is tackled in this book is past life regression therapy. And let me tell you about it. The book itself is written by a well-regarded psychiatrist named Brian Weiss, and you can look him up on Wikipedia and everywhere. And he used to be this skeptic psychiatrist who just practiced hypnosis on his patients in order to heal them from their trauma. And the way he did it was through something known as instant induction hypnosis. And for all of the skeptics out there, although I don't really know why a skeptic would be watching the episode named Reincarnation or whatever I named it, but okay, for all the skeptics out there, I'm first going to explain how instant induction hypnosis operates. The thing that you should know about humans is that there is a degree of suggestibility to which everyone is open. And what it basically means, every time and all the time, our mind is open to suggestions. No matter what you may think about yourself, some part of you is open to suggestions. The way this hypnosis technique works is by distracting the conscious mind and by tapping into the unconscious mind in this very short gap when your conscious mind is trying to tackle the meaning of what is being said to you. For example, imagine a patient and a hypnotist. Let's say the hypnotist shakes your hand suddenly. This sudden shake of a hand triggers the area of the brain called amygdala. This is the area of the brain responsible for detecting danger, and it is also responsible for fight or flight. Basically, it was developed throughout evolution, and when our predators were in dangerous settings, when there was, say, a tiger hiding in the grass, amygdala was always active. It always had to be active. In the modern day, our amygdala is still active most of the time or all the time, and it is always looking and scanning for the danger out there. So a sudden shake of a hand is something that you did not anticipate. And while the amygdala is being activated, now in this short time gap, which is less than a second, it is time to introduce a command. And the hypnotist says, sleep. What happens in this short time frame, the conscious mind is so distracted with processing the handshake, and the amygdala is so distracted with whether it is a real danger or not a real danger, while the subconscious mind takes in what is being said and responds. Our unconscious mind works 1,000 times faster than a conscious mind. So this is the example how instant induction hypnosis could be used. Brian Weiss himself, the author of the book, used to be a real skeptic. He would only use hypnosis in order to discover the root of the trauma for the patients. He just got another patient who has been dealing with a lot of phobias. That patient was a bit special. No matter how many sessions they would do, no matter how many hypnosis therapies they would do, she could never discover the root of the issue. It was really strange for the psychiatrist himself, who was well regarded in his field and who has done multiple hypnosis sessions with her, but still to no avail. And so one time he decided to try something new. He told Catherine to go back in time, to the time when she was 2 years old. And strangely enough, she could remember that time period in her life. But okay, nothing supernatural. Some people possess extraordinary memory, so he just proceeded. He warned her that whatever you're gonna see now, when I tell you to go back, doesn't matter whether it's fantasy or reality, just take this in and tell me what you're seeing. She could clearly see that there was another person there, but she wasn't aware that she had a twin or anything. After this hypnosis session, she spoke to her mother to clarify whether she ever had a twin, and turned out that she did. And in fact, that twin died when she was born, and her mother never told her about that. Brian Weiss discovered that hypnosis could activate really early stage memories. He started practicing it with many other patients, telling them to go back before the time of their birth. And to his surprise, he discovered that some of our phobias could be rooted in our past lives. For example, if there was somebody afraid to swim, if there was somebody who had crazy fear of drowning, but they never really had an experience itself, he would regress them back to their past life, and they would see themselves from a third-person perspective, which is also a part of a hypnosis. They could see a person being drowned, and they could identify with that person. They could sense that it was themselves. Doesn't matter how different they look, they could sense that it was their soul, the same spirit. And exactly once we discover the root of the trauma, everything in our brain changes. Once the source is found, it is much easier to tackle the issue itself. And so this way, Brian Weiss helped many patients. Now, what I've just told you is simply the description of the book, is simply the premise. Whatever you decide to make of it, whatever you decide to think about it, and whatever you decide to think about my personal mental stability or instability is up to you. I personally believe in reincarnation, and in this episode I would like to talk about this topic because it has interested me for a very long time, and it means a lot of things for me. Previously, when I would talk to some people about it, they would tell me that I'm coming from a place of insecurity. I'm coming from the place of being afraid of uncertainty that comes with death. But I simply do not agree with that. I remember 3 years ago, or maybe a bit more, as a child for sure, I used to be really intimidated by the concept of reincarnation. I did not like it at all. We live this life in order to forget, in order to then remember, and all the learning itself is not really learning the way we see it, the way we are used to seeing it, but just remembering of the things that we had already learned multiple times. I hated the concept itself because with it, it brought very broad questions about life and the meaning of life itself. Whether it is futile, whether it is useful, why do we live in order to forget, in order to then remember? I loved mathematics and I loved computer science. I loved things to be explained psychologically with a clear yes or no answer. And that topic of reincarnation itself simply would bring me to tears sometimes whenever I would see it somewhere. as a child. Over the years, I read multiple literature and I heard many people do those past life regression sessions, and I've grown more interested in the topic itself. And I've experienced many phenomena where I would feel really attached to a particular place, or I would look at a certain person and see them as somebody who I used to know so well. How else could I explain the instant connection between me and that other person? The instant spark between two people that appears after you've only talked to one another during the period of 2 or 3 days. Some things that happen to us cannot be backed up by science, but if something cannot be backed up by science yet, we cannot possibly say that this information is false. I could tell you that in the past, people could not explain hallucinations. They just thought that that was the sign of a possessed person. Right now, we can explain hallucinations through science. So the thing is, we are not at the level where we know everything. In fact, I believe that we know only 1 or 2% of the things that are available out there. How can we think that the capacity of the human mind is enough to explain everything? This is my line of reasoning, and this is why I still believe in reincarnation with my whole heart. Exactly, since this book is called Only Love is Real, Brian Weiss tackles the theme of love and the theme of soulmates. Are there soulmates in this world? And if yes, how does this work? I'm going to go back to the premise of the book itself and explain it through the words of the writer before giving you my own opinion. So please do not take what I'm about to say as my own opinion or as my own research. There are 2 people in this book who come to his hypnosis sessions separately, and they are patients sitting in separate rooms. And of course, there is something as non-disclosure agreement. When you're a psychiatrist, you cannot talk to your other patients about your other patients. In fact, you cannot talk to anybody about your patients. I think that's how it works. As they were doing those past life regression therapies, Brian Weiss discovered as their psychiatrist that they had parallel memories. Throughout their lifetimes that they recalled, they had been coming back to each other again and again, only in different roles. The thing that stayed the same was the fact that they were soul companions and they were traveling together. The roles in which they manifested in one another's life didn't really matter. A mother and a son, 2 lovers, a sister and a brother. The thing that mattered was the fact that those were strong bonds and they remained intact throughout their life. All of the tragedy and all of the multiple separations that they faced, in the end, only served to bring them closer together to one another. And I found this whole story really beautiful, inspiring, and I just want to talk about it. This poses a lot of significant questions. What is the point of life and what is the point of all suffering if in the end we die in order to forget, in order to then live again and meet the same people again? Why are we afraid of death if there is no such thing as death itself, the way we view it? And I'll talk about it later on. What is the point of suffering? Is suffering inevitable? Is it inescapable? Do we have free will? If this is arranged by the universe that we keep meeting the same soul companions again and again, how can we really escape them? How can we prevent it from happening? Can it be forever terminated? I would like to tackle one of those questions and speculate about the existence of free will. This topic is really fascinating to me. Do we have free will? And if yes, to what extent do we have it? And I believe that we do have free will. If you want to know my stance on all of that, I think that the universe itself is responsible for giving us chances, for presenting us with opportunities. And I don't think it only happens once. That is why I don't really believe in the concept of a waste of time or a waste of an opportunity. I think we have a lot of agency and control over our own life. And the more we believe in the fact that we have free will, the more free will we have, because we recognize the existence of it. Therefore, we are prone to exercising the thing that is available at our disposal. Life might put us on a path with people that we are meant to be on, one time, twice, or three times. But if we choose to miss the opportunity again and again and again, countless times, by prioritizing work, by prioritizing instant gratification, or by just ignoring the opportunity because we recognize that there are so many difficulties on our path that would supposedly come if we accept the opportunity itself, then life just stops trying. I think we are responsible for sending signals to the universe, and I think we are responsible for letting the universe know what we really want from life. I think that if we want to have something, we need to ask for it. It's almost like being a child. We never stop being children really in our nature. Think about a child and the way they operate. If they're sad, they're crying. If they want something, they say to their parents, I want it. I want this candy. I want this toy. I want to have it right here and right now. And then what most likely ends up happening, their parents give them that thing that they crave. We should operate in life in the same way. We should ask for the things that we want to have. And we should send signals to the universe. Be ready to receive the things. I think that all of us underestimate the power of thinking and especially reflection. We should always reflect on the patterns that we have in life. If we feel like this person is significant, ask yourself why. What sort of bond are you feeling to this person, and why do you feel drawn to this person? Are there any qualities that attract you? What are the emotions that the fleeting interactions with this person bring you on a day-to-day basis? And if you feel like this is something that your heart tells you to follow, then tell all of the noise to fuck off and follow that thing. I think we make this mistake so many times that we prioritize the things that the society tells us to prioritize, work, hustle, and so on. And we forget about the meaning of it all, which is human interaction, which is human connection, which is being with each other. Do you really think that we were brought on this earth to work 80 hours a week? Let's think about the past. In the past, it was considered crazy when people worked 40 hours a week. And most likely, if you worked 40 hours a week on something of your own, you will become a successful entrepreneur. Now everybody works 40 hours a week, and even 80 hours a week is not something so crazy. We work and we work. We are trying to escape the noise while being in this noise more and more, while immersing ourselves in the noise more and more on a day-to-day basis. And what we are trying to escape is the discomfort that comes with putting ourselves out there and creating the opportunities for human interactions. Nobody needs this shit anymore. I'm building my own company. I'm trying to hustle in my 20s. While all of these things are good, what is the rush? Especially if we take into account the concept of reincarnation, what is the rush? There are multiple lives. There are countless lessons to be learned. There are innumerable situations in your life where you will make mistakes and where you will learn from those mistakes in order to make another mistake again and again. What is the point of achieving everything fast to then be lonely until the rest of your life? Because by the time you get out of this bunker where you do not see any sunlight because you want to get this thing done fast, and that's why you chose to block all of the access to the outside world, by the time you get out of here, it's gone. The chances are gone, or the chances are so diminished. We live in order to connect. And we live in order to be of service to each other, and in order to learn from each other, and in order to be with each other, in order to dedicate our time to each other. Not to that job, not to that hustle. Yes, exactly, some time could be dedicated to all of those things. However, many people make a mistake of dedicating their whole life into chasing a material success, and then they questioning why they are unhappy. Because we live in order to achieve human connection, in order to find our own soulmate, in order to find the people who we align with spiritually, who we feel so drawn to, with whom it takes us a fleeting second to recognize the familiarity with. And while all of this might sound like a fairy tale to you, it doesn't sound like that to me at all, because I've experienced that. And maybe some people who haven't, maybe you need to try to get out and put yourself out there. Maybe you need to try to pay attention to the interactions that you have and to the impact that they play in your life. And maybe you will see that some of the people in your life are really special. And maybe it will encourage you to question, what are you spending your time on? the point of all this talk about reincarnation? These are all fun and games, this is all very cool, but what is the point of that? Why am I listening to this? Let's talk about death. A lot of people are afraid of death. A lot of people are afraid of the very concept of death instead of death itself. And the reason I'm saying that is because we can never know what death is. Let's think about it from a linguistic perspective. The very recollection of the word death inevitably brings the word into the present existence. It brings it to life. It makes it undead. So the very pronunciation of the word death in any language in this world already makes it present. It makes it alive, which in itself is not really the death that exists out there. We can never understand death. And the only thing that death is uncertainty. And the only thing that uncertainty is associated with for most of the people is anxiety and fear. Why are we so afraid of uncertainty? What is it about uncertainty that makes us afraid? Well, that's because we like to have everything under control. We like to have everything figured out. We like to view ourselves as the creators of our own lives, while not taking into account that the universe is much more vast and it's not really designed, if it is the thing that had initially been designed, to play according to our wishes. Here's the thing, death is the ultimate paradox. It breaks all our expectations of fitting into a predictable space. And while we may find the ways to get around uncertainty and make our lives more and more predictable, where we are constructing this world where humans could feel more and more in control, we are constructing AI, technologies, multiple things that we could control, there are things in this world that I do not believe can ever be controlled. This is nature and death. We can never go around these concepts and take hold of them, because no matter how superior we may feel with our inventions, death will always be there, and its meaning can never be deciphered. However, there is a way to get beyond this fear, and it is the recognition of the human immortality. I believe that by trusting in the concept of reincarnation and by being sure for yourself that it exists, the feeling sometimes is just enough, the feeling of pure certainty. Things could get an explanation as the time passes, but do we need to wait for an explanation? Do we need to wait for a backed up evidence, or is it just enough for us to believe? For me, personally, it is enough to believe. And I do trust in the concept of reincarnation, and it is something that brings me immense peace. But again, not because I operate from a place of fear and use it as a consolation, but purely because this is something that I trust in. And I think it is futile to worry so much about the future, and especially to dwell on the past, when we have the understanding that the attempts that we get in life are innumerable. We are here to learn. And we are here to learn and unlearn and relearn. And you might ask me, what is the point of all this cycle? And it is a very deep question and certainly cannot be answered in one sentence. But if I were to try to summarize the feeling that I have while speaking about something like this, I just think our purpose here is again to connect with one another and to recognize the negativity, the negative emotions, and to stop operating from the place of anxiety, fear, jealousy, disappointment, and so on. I'm not saying that these emotions are bad by nature. I'm just saying that maybe the point of life is to learn to operate from the place of pure love and from the place of pure gratitude. Because think about all the times that you truly loved someone, and think about all of the times that you were truly grateful. And how blissful was that state? How amazing did it make you feel? How elevated did it make you feel? You know, we see only 1% of the things that are available out there. The light that enters into our retina and then gets processed through some areas of the brain is not the objective picture of reality. It is just what our brain shows us in accordance with the things that it knows we would be able to see, we would want to see. But have you ever experienced this state where you feel so drawn to the details? Like you open your eyes and suddenly the world looks different. Like everything looks the same, but you can see the details everywhere. Your perception is heightened. For those who have tried certain things in life, which I'm not going to name, I think you know what I'm talking about because I don't want to get banned. You know that they bring you the heightened level of focus. That just goes to prove that the reality that we are experiencing right now is not 100% objective. In fact, it is not objective at all. And it is proven by everybody in the science field that you can ever imagine. When we experience gratitude or love, we can tap into those states where our attention is so heightened. And suddenly it doesn't matter that things look the same, the feeling is different, the perception is different. This goes to prove that there is something about feeling those higher states and higher emotional states. There is something about expansion of the mind, and I would go even as far as to say expansion of the spirit. And maybe that is the point of life, to expand the spirit, whatever it may mean to anybody. Try to remember that sometimes it's very hard to find the root of the trauma. And if I believe in reincarnation, I would say that some of the traumas are rooted in your past lives. With this concept, a lot of things can be explained that cannot be explained without believing in the concept of reincarnation, such as the existence of patterns in your life. Why do you encounter a specific type of narcissist again and again and again? You don't like those people, you don't like to associate yourself with them, but somehow they just latch onto you. There are a lot of patterns that might arise in somebody's life, and until we find the root of it, it might be really hard to eradicate this thing that we no longer want to appear in our life. The past life regression therapy is really good with that. There are a lot of other techniques that are changing the field of psychotherapy rapidly, such as EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And this is done basically by introducing the bilateral stimuli to the patient while they are immersed into the experience of recalling their trauma. Anyway, you can read about that. Right now, the field of psychotherapy is getting more and more progressive with all of those techniques, and exactly the normal therapy where you talk on one-on-one basis with your therapist is becoming less and less effective and popularized. I believe in 10 years we would have multiple new techniques of how we can tackle the trauma faster, how we can find the root of all of these insecurities and social behaviors that we do not necessarily admire in ourselves, for much lesser cost of it. At least that is the future that I choose to believe in, and I hope this will become a reality, because right now it is ridiculous. The money that we are paying for therapy in order to just talk our problems out loud with somebody that we know for sure we can trust because there is a confidentiality agreement, this is ridiculous. And does it do something? Yes, I believe in therapy. I think it does something. But there are much more effective ways, such as EMDR and other ways. And even cognitive behavioral therapy in some ways is really useful. But among them, I truly think that past life regression therapy could be a useful case if somebody cannot find the root of their trauma or of their phobias at all. Fun fact, did you know that humans are born with only two innate phobias, which is the fear of heights and the fear of loud noises, that have been encoded into our DNA through the process of evolution? All of the other phobias are conditioned into us through society. But what if you just have a phobia that you're not sure where the cause is? I have relatives in my life and they have phobias and they do not know the root of the issue. And honestly, I started recommending that particular hypnosis to them because even a normal hypnosis can be effective in sorting out your memories in your brain and helping you remember in order to then work on an issue itself. Now, let's go back to spirituality instead of psychology and science and all that bullshit. In this book, Brian Weiss makes an amazing point about spirit that really rang true to me, or that I just found myself deeply aligned with. He says that the spirit itself is a very expansive entity, and when we enter into a three-dimensional space, what needs to be done with the spirit is that it needs to be compressed. When it is compressed, obviously there is no longer expansion of the spirit, and so that is why the point of life itself is to expand the spirit, is to work on the spirit in order to enter other dimensions. Because how can we be so narrow-minded to think that there is only three-dimensional space that exists out there? he says that the more we expand our minds and the more we expand our consciousness, the more we understand that in fact we are all a part of the same being. We are all a part of the same being. We are all a part of the same entity. There is no difference between any of us. All these qualities that we assign to ourselves and all these ways that we categorize each other in order to differentiate from one another are just futile. They're just useless. They're just human-made. Why do we do all of those things? Why do we categorize? When you look into the eyes of another human being, you're looking back at yourself. And I find this extremely beautiful. Think about it. When you look into the eyes of another human being, you're looking back at the reflection of yourself. And exactly all this discussion brings me to the main point, the thing that unites everything, which is love. Can anybody answer the question, what is love? This is a chemical reaction in my brain? Seriously? This is what you're telling me? Yes, it is. But also, it is something beyond that. It is the energy that unites everybody and everything. And it is the very reminder that we are all a part of the same being and of the same entity. That no matter how different you may think you are from everybody or how special you are from everybody, it's either that we are all special or it's none of us are special. That is the thing. Love is a really hard topic to tackle, and if you had ever experienced it, you know that this is something beyond words, beyond explanations. It is the thing that transforms us, and it is the thing that dissipates any fear, worry, anxiety, and all of those low vibrational emotions. Love is something that activates the spark within you, that reminds you that you can do anything. And I believe that it is true. Life is not designed to prevent you from succeeding. You do not live in order to suffer, in order to be a slave to the system. You can believe in the reality that you want to believe in. But what is reality? Is our three-dimensional reality something that you choose to define as objective reality? What if there is spirit? And what if there had been a process of compression? How can you say that this three-dimensional space is the reality? What if the reality itself is what we think the illusion is, and the illusion is what the reality is? So in this case, the reality is the illusion, but the illusion, which is the reality, only love is real. There is something about it. We know that love is real. We know that love brings us a set of other higher states, and it acts as an access key to those higher states, to the states of gratitude, to the states of bliss, to the states of pure being, which again is gratitude. There's something about love that can never be explained, but there's also something that rings true to each and every one of us. It is something that is manifested so differently in everyone's life, and yet when one expresses their love to another person, we understand each other. It is something beyond words, because if one tries to put the meaning of love into words, it always comes out to be a different sentence from the one that was previously made. And yet, we find the ways to identify ourselves with each statement that is made in relation to the meaning of love itself. How can it be true? How can it exist beyond the human constructs? How can love exist outside of all things and yet be the entity or the force that unites everyone and everything, being the ultimate reminder of our immortality, of the immortality of the soul? Perhaps the reality is the recognition of our immortality, and the illusion is the reality itself that we think might one day be terminated, that encourages us to hurry and to hustle and to panic, to have these anxieties and fears and panic attacks. Oh my God, what if I cannot do this thing and that thing? Take your time. There is no hurry, and there is no time. There is really no time. We made up this notion of time, but the thing that had already been there before existence and probably will be after our existence is love. Nobody made it up. We just classified it. We just put it into the category of emotions, but it is not even an emotion. It is the state. It is a very high vibrational state that everybody gets a chance to experience. Only a lot of people do not recognize the opportunity when it comes along their way. The first time, the second time, and the third time. We're all so busy, caught up in our own bullshit, thinking about time and hurrying and rushing ahead of everybody else, forgetting that their reality is not defined by how many stocks we bought this year, how much money we've made in dividends. Instead, I think that our reality is defined by our ability to love and receive the love back. Because the more we give away to the world of our love and of our gratitude, the more we receive of it. And this is the fact of life. This is the thing that always works. Try it. It will work. trust me. I am going to call it a night because I think this was my longest episode and I've been looking forward to making it for a long time. It took me some courage to actually make it and to put it into the right context because I don't really know how it's going to be perceived by my viewers. But whatever, like who cares? This is my personal take on the life itself, on the meaning of it even. Some deep topics have been discussed. Some people have made a conclusion that I'm totally insane and should be sent into asylum straight away after this episode. So they're calling British Transport Police to deport me on the tube from this country, which is totally fine. That's okay. I accept your opinion. Please follow me on social media at Blue Hour Pod. Drop me an email for collaboration purposes, or if you have any inquiries at lutinastas320@gmail.com. Listen to this podcast on any streaming platforms that you use for listening to the podcasts. Video episodes are exclusively on Spotify and YouTube. Do not miss out on those crazy breathtaking visuals, and please watch them because I need some funding to invest into my equipment and to produce these episodes for you, and I also need some motivation. And yeah, let's all go out and look for love, only not at this time of the night because it's quite dangerous out here in London. It's like really creepy. No, really, I love the city so much. It's like great, amazing, my favorite city in the world. Anyway, good night everybody, or good morning everybody, or good afternoon everybody, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye bye.